Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Real Scottish Politics at the National.Scot. I'm Steph Braun, one of the political reporters, and I'm here with my colleague Craig Megan. How are you doing, Craig?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I just moved, so I'm settling in. But
That's exciting.
there's lots of news for me to get stuck into today, so won't have much time to unpack, I don't think.
Well, I worked on Sunday, so I was off yesterday as well. So we're not doing a dissimilar boat, but it's a big day today. We're hoping anyway, because Nicola Sturgeon is set to make an announcement on IndyRef 2 at around about 2:20, I think, from Holyrood. She's going to, we hear, set out a route to an independence referendum, a second independence referendum. And it should be, we hope, quite an exciting day, because this is the first time I think we've really heard that something might happen. The situation obviously is that Boris Johnson has ruled out any prospect of a second independence referendum and handing over the powers to Scotland to have one via a Section 30 order. But Nicola Sturgeon is insistent a fresh vote will happen and must happen, given the fact that she has a democratic mandate to hold one through winning the Scottish election last year on a manifesto of holding one, and through a pro-independence majority at Holyrood. So we're kind of faced with the question of how do Scotland hold a legal referendum without the permission of the UK government, which it doesn't look like they're going to get. We're hoping for some answers today as to how that can be done. Obviously, independence supporters will feel some sense of relief, I think, this announcement is happening. But what do you think needs to come out of it, Craig, to satisfy them? What do you think they want to hear?
I think yesers want something concrete, something that's like tangible, such as a date or a plan that's very straightforward that they can understand. That's I don't think people want another announcement or something like that. But it's difficult to see where the Scottish government could go. As you said, the UK government has said it won't grant a Section 30 order. So I think many people are interested to see, okay, if they won't, then how is the Scottish government going to hold a legal referendum without that Section 30 order? So yeah, I think more than anything, it's just something concrete.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've been in this sort of stalemate. I guess since Brexit, Scotland, the majority of Scots did not vote for Brexit, and that gave produced a bit of a drive for another independence referendum, because the circumstances have changed so much since 2014. But we've been in this stalemate where how do we get that done? Because the UK government play on this. It was a once in a generation vote, and they keep bringing that out. You've had just say it was only 8 years ago. So we've been in this stalemate of where do we go from here? So we're really hoping to get some answers on that today, because I think that the independence paper that came out the other week was good. It had some stuff in it that we've not heard before, but I think that people, strong yes campaigners, were still walking away from it a bit frustrated, thinking, but what do we do? How do we get this referendum? So fingers crossed for some answers, I guess.
Yeah. I think she described that sort of paper as a scene setter for independence. And I think what many yesers are wanting is something more tangible and something like a date. Or I think there was talks that maybe today could be an announcement of some sort of referendum that isn't legally binding. But I mean, how do you think that will play with yes voters? Do you think that's something that people want? Would that work, do you think?
I would say that the majority of yes voters would probably want a referendum that is binding. We don't want to have, surely most people will not want to have a referendum and then find yet again, well, not yet again, but then find that it doesn't mean anything. We can't go anywhere with it. I think that most people will want a referendum they know is going, if it comes out as yes, is going to result in independence, and there's not going to be a challenge to that in any way. So I think just to be clear, we don't know what's going to come out of this announcement later on. I don't think most people do. I think even people inside the government are not particularly sure. But what we do know, I think, is the sort of likely alternative to a Section 30 order being offered up is a referendum bill will be presented to the Scottish Parliament, which presumably would be voted through because there's a pro-independence majority in Holyrood. But then the suspicion is that would then be challenged in the courts because, as far as we're aware, the Scottish Parliament don't have powers to hold a referendum without the permission of the UK government. So do you think that the UK government really want a court battle? Because I think that one of the things the Yes campaign was relying on is that they wouldn't want to go through that. So they surely have to just kind of respect democracy and just, let this happen sort of peacefully. Do you think that they're really up for fighting this out?
Yeah, I don't think a court battle is good for a number of reasons, just on the PR front as well. As you said, the SNP, from their point of view, they're saying they have a democratically elected mandate for this, and if the UK government has to use the judicial system in order to stop the Scottish government, then I think they'll use that to say that they're basically using anything to sort of squash this. So I don't think it's good for a number of reasons, and I can't imagine either side would want it. But whether that happens, maybe with this announcement, we'll find out if we're any closer to it. So I think, is it 2:20?
Yeah, it's 2:20, and I think we're going to have a live blog and loads of stuff on our website about it. Reaction from Yes groups, from unionist groups as well. I think our reporter Judith Duffy is talking to a few kind of grassroots organisations. So that'll be on thenational.scot. So keep an eye on the website. Probably from 2:00 onwards, I would suggest. But we've obviously got other bits of news going on, but despite that being such a huge thing, haven't we, Craig?
Yeah, we do, and and just to mention, it should be live streamed as well across our social media at 2:20. I guess yesterday the big news was the abortion summit that was held with Nicola Sturgeon for about 3 hours, I think, in yesterday morning. You've been covering buffer zones a lot. I mean, tell us what happened yesterday. Did anything concrete come from that, or?
I mean, in terms of concrete stuff, I think there was basically the summit brought together people like Police Scotland, the NHS, third sector organisations, to speak about, the pros and cons of buffer zones, whether they need to be brought in or not, why they need to be brought in. So I think it was more of a discussion about, why this needs to happen. And Nicola Sturgeon, at the end of the day, said it was very constructive, and she obviously is determined to get this in place, despite the fact that it's a little bit legally tricky in places with human rights legislation. But I think the main sort of concrete thing that came out of it, I mean, you may not even be able to call it concrete, but she did explore the idea of having a test council for the implementation of buffer zones. So basically Edinburgh or Glasgow, perhaps, is the names that were put out there, could test the idea, trial the idea of buffer zones, because they've had they've experienced most of the problems with the Chalmers clinic in Edinburgh and the Sandyford clinic in Glasgow. They've had some really big issues with protesters. So I think the idea is that they're going to look at possibly testing the idea. There's been a bit of a debate over whether this legislation that Gillian Mackay is trying to introduce through her bill to have 150-metre buffer zones outside of clinics, there's been a bit of a debate as to whether that should be implemented nationally or locally, at what level. There are campaigners that want it introduced nationally, so there isn't this kind of postcode lottery as to whether you would face protesters or not. But there are, I think there's been other views that, councils should be under their sort of jurisdiction as to whether they're brought in or not. So I wouldn't say anything massively concrete came out of it, but it was certainly a very positive discussion that this is something that needs to happen, and it sounds like the government want to find solutions and bring this in. So Gillian Mackay has got a consultation going on her bill at the moment, which would make it which would bring buffer zones in, and I think that goes on till mid-August. So you can still engage with that if you want to. I think it's been pretty popular so far. So
yes. So it appears that there's widespread support for this, right? It's more of the fact that there are legal hurdles, such as council bylaws, can councils enact that? Is that legal? Is it legal to do a nationwide policy? And there were similar policies elsewhere, right? So yeah, it's a weird one, because there seems to be this will to do it by some people, but just not sure whether it's legal.
Yeah, because obviously people do have a right to protest. We don't want to stop that. We don't want to set a precedent that you can't protest against something. But the problem with this is that it is causing real anxiety and stress for women that are going to get abortions when someone is standing right outside the entrance to a clinic, which is often the only way in. Women are being, harassed and intimidated by these people, even if these people think they're helping or offering advice or offering alternatives. It's just not helping, and it's not good for the mental health of women who are going through this and choosing to do this. So it's a really tricky issue, but it'll be interesting to see how things go from here. And I think there is, like you say, a huge will to get this done, and I think it will be possible, even if there's a bit of wrangling to do. So I think that's pretty much going to be our discussion for today. There's tons of really interesting stories on the website for you to look into, including one where one of our reporters has discovered that the UK government has a stake in a company which organises sex parties as a result of one of the Chancellor's COVID cash schemes. I will leave it there, and you can go and have a read of that, because that's a really interesting one. Another thing that's popped up today that I think is quite interesting is it's only just come to our knowledge that I think our reporter Judith Duffy is going to do a story later in the week a bit about this. Is that the All Under One Banner group, All Under One Banner Cymru, based in Wales, are holding an independence march on Saturday, and it's billed as the first large-scale indie march in Wales, which is quite exciting. We're quite sympathetic towards the Welsh independence, aren't we, Craig? Because it's obviously there are similarities between the two campaigns, I suppose.
Yeah, there are definitely many parallels, and Scotland is no stranger to these types of marches. Just had one on Saturday, so yeah, I'm sure there'll be lots of excitement in Wales for this too.
Excellent. We do hope so. No, well, thanks very much for joining us, everyone, and do keep an eye on the national.scot this afternoon for everything around the independence referendum announcement. And here's hoping something exciting comes out of it. So we'll see you later.